Hello there, and welcome to the Mr. Shades show. I am Jedi Master Shades, and we are going to talk about the rise of Skywalker, the end of the saga, 9 movies, 40 years in the making. You know about all my previous feelings about the last movies. My friend Zach is not here because he gave the rest of his life force to me after I had died watching this movie because it's very disappointing. Yeah, I'm sorry to say, but it was disappointing to me. We'll start off, I guess, with the plot as we normally do. It's hard to talk about this plot without spoiling it, even though some of it's in the trailer. So I'm going to start off with the fact that Palpatine is confirmed back. It is the first sentence in the crawl, and our characters have to deal with that. They have to figure out where Palpatine is, and go deal with the shit and shenanigans he's starting. It's the first half of this movie spends so much time retconning and apologizing for and making up for The Last Jedi, in that there are lines and things like that are just contradicting what we saw in the last movie. And then there's also the fact that it's making up for what we didn't get in the last movie, where Poe and Finn and all of them are basically they're trying to give more characters to them because they didn't really spend a whole lot of time together in The Last Jedi. So it's trying to develop those characters of Finn, Poe, and Rey. We get a bunch of scenes where it's like, oh, Rey's training now, but it feels very too little, too late kind of thing. So the plot is, Kylo's also trying to find Palpatine, which he does. And then Rey and Kylo have a thing going on. Again, they are the most interesting part of this film. All their performances are great. They actually give Daisy Ridley something more in this film, usually. Because the last couple movies, wasn't really that into her character all that much. Stuff like that. So they try and give more character to these characters that they have had previously squandered in a way. So the new characters, they give more characterization to. The old characters, they also give a little bit to. C-3PO is one of my favorite parts in this movie. He is genuinely entertaining every time he says something. It's weird. You actually care about C-3PO in this film. But again, R2-D2 doesn't have anything to do, and they have all these characters from the previous movies, but then they still feel the need to introduce more characters. And it's like, no, we don't need them. They don't really serve any purpose. They just add on to this already jumbled mess of a movie. And there's so much that was cut, and there was leaks that, I don't want to go into. And it's clear the leaks were confirmed by watching this film, but also a lot of the stuff in the leaks is evidently cut out of the film, so that makes it really hard to get behind. The story has also got a lot of J.J. Abrams problems, where in that it has just everything super convenient for all our characters. They have to go find this thing. They find the thing. The thing leads them to this. They have to go find this character, and conveniently the characters they know is right there. Conveniently characters just show up. Characters conveniently have everything that the heroes need at that specific time. Like one time a character shows up, has a scene with Poe. The next scene, they have an emotional moment with C-3PO and stuff. And then the next scene is like, here, I have the new character with Poe that was they're hinted at to have some form of romance with Poe was like, here, take this thing. It's this thing that'll get you what you need to do, and it's just get you where you need to go, and it's just like mighty fucking convenient. And that's my problem with this story is like all the things are so convenient, and it's like, or they'll have this thing that happens and then they undercut it by revealing that the thing you thought happened didn't actually happen, like character deaths. It happens twice in this film where characters think a character dies but not really, or like they kind of, or a character does die but not really, so it's really dumb. I don't want to spoil who or what, but if there are people on my channel who actually care about those sort of things, because this movie's relatively new, so the first half of this film feels so rushed because it's trying to make up for the last movie while also setting up the later half of the film, which feels like the real third movie, where it kind of slows down a little bit. Not much, but just enough to be like, okay, you can now breathe, you can get a little bit more out of it. Like, the first half, it just makes no fucking sense with a lot of things, and then the next part is a little bit better, but not much. Visually, this movie, it's really interesting. It's a good movie to look at. Like, there's a lot of great visuals and stuff in the film. The lighting, the cinematography, lots of good stuff. It definitely feels like, well, it feels like a J.J. Abrams movie because it's J.J. directing, but it also feels more consistent with what The Force Awakens is, because you watch The Last Jedi and it's completely different in a style and type of movie than the last one, and then J.J. comes back in and does this one, and it's, again, a J.J. Abrams movie, so it feels really weird. It makes the second film, while I didn't like it, it definitely had some interesting ideas that are ignored or retconned. Like, a lot of it is ignored or retconned in this from the last film, which makes it feel completely useless to watch, because it doesn't really, there's stuff that you can pick up on in The Rise of Skywalker if you don't watch The Last Jedi, which I find is really annoying, and it just shows how useless how much of a waste of time this entire trilogy has been, because nothing really mattered. Like, everything that was set up in The Force Awakens, ignored by The Last Jedi. Everything that was set up in The Last Jedi, ignored in this one. So it really just is a masterclass of how not to write a three-movie trilogy. Well, that's redundant. A trilogy of films that just, they don't, like, they don't mesh at all, really, because there's just so much plot threads and stuff that are just like walled off and ignored throughout the two sequels to The Force Awakens. And that's also a big problem in The Rise of Skywalker. There are constant hints at plot lines or subplots that are just never resolved or completely ignored, and that really hurts it, in my opinion. So the story wasn't very good. The visuals were good for a J.J. Abrams movie. You're going in, you're obviously going to see some cool stuff. The new characters were almost completely forgettable and just there to serve one purpose, and then they're gone. Like, they're just completely inconsequential to the rest of the movie once they do their thing. Of course, they all show up back at the end, but it's like, really? How? Why? That's the big question that I was asking Zach with myself in the theater. I was just like, there was so many times where I was like, audibly, like, what? How? Wait, what? Fuck, what? And then, so there's a lot of emotional payoffs that are supposed to happen in the film, but they don't really they feel really unearned. Like a lot, like the whole ending feels completely unearned. So yeah, that was like emotionally, this movie didn't mean really much to me except for one scene with Chewbacca, and that was it. But the rest just feels so unearned because we don't really know these characters. They haven't had time to grow and develop or play off of each other like the original or in the prequels. So you don't really care all that much by the end. And like there are things that are just so complete. Like I'm watching this film in the theaters where we saw The Late Show, so I don't really know how. Like I was listening, the crowd wasn't really into it because it was like midnight by the time we got out or so. So it was people were kind of tired and things like that. So that kind of I don't know how to say my theater going experience was, but a couple people have like messaged me like one person I know went opening night on Thursday, and they were messaging me or later that night, and I'm just like, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna go this weekend. I went on Saturday, and I know it's Monday filming this and posting it probably tomorrow because I really wanted to get my thoughts out on this. I wanted to see what a lot of other people were saying. So, and because for me as a critic, it's always important to get those compare contrasts, see what everybody else is saying, if you agree, if you disagree. And I found myself slightly disagreeing with some of the things. So, this movie obviously I enjoyed it. It took me a little bit to get into it, but once it hits that halfway mark, I'm like, okay, I'm here for it. Let's see where you take me. I don't want to spoil this because I'll probably be doing this is probably going to be like the first-ish review. Zach and I are probably going to do one because I want to get his thoughts on it, and he wants to get his thoughts out on camera. So I'm going to do this solo, and then we're also probably going to review the Solo film at some point because we have not yet filmed that review. So I think that's going to wrap it up because it's usually around the runtime, but when there's two people, it's a little bit longer. So I'm going to do what we've been doing and do the best and worst parts. And the worst part for me in this entire movie was the stuff with Palpatine, because it felt completely out of nowhere. There are revelations in it that to me don't make any sense or just really stupid, and Family Guy and Robot Chicken have made jokes about the stuff that they went with in this movie, so it's really weird for me to be like, okay, really, that's the way you're going with this? So the Palpatine stuff for me was the worst part. But on the best part, and this is where a lot of people are probably I'm gonna get some hate for this, was the Kylo and Rey stuff. I really liked how they brought over one of my favorite parts of The Last Jedi was the Force connection, where the Force was manifesting water on Kylo's hands and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I thought that was really interesting. And in this film, it's taken to an incredible degree, which I thought was kind of fun. I didn't really see too much of a problem with it, but a lot of people do because they think the Force is a certain thing, and I'm like, well, the Force, we don't really know. So I'm like, well, the Force could possibly do this. And so my favorite part was the Rey and Kylo stuff, whereas the least interesting part or the worst part was the Palpatine stuff, and from the rest of the stuff was high or low. There was moments I liked, moments I disliked, but I can't really go into that without spoiling the hell out of this movie. So I'm going on to my final rating with me not liking the first half and liking the second half, with certain things I didn't like. I'm gonna rate it higher than The Last Jedi at a 6. I gave The Last Jedi a 4 because I thought that film lacked execution in every area, whereas this part only lacking execution in certain areas, but it's also making up for The Last Jedi. So there's a lot of things in that movie and this movie that are just kind of iffy for me. Iffy to bad for Last Jedi, but this is kind of iffy to good for The Rise of Skywalker. So my final rating is 6 out of 10. And I'm going to say that this was a very disappointing ending to not only the trilogy, but an end cap to a series that's 9 years long. So it just kind of feels very disappointing to me. It's almost like this franchise wasn't built to survive past 1983. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching, and may the Force be with you.